It's often been said that people don't really care how much you know until they understand how much you care. The Spirit fills a 10-minute tour, day 5 of the Torah portion of Vayigash. Let's go to Bereshit, or Genesis, chapter 47, and read verses 1 through 4. Verse 1 says, Then Joseph went and spoke to Pharaoh and said, My father and my brothers, their flocks and their herds and all that they possess have come from the land of Canaan, and see, they are in the land of Goshen. And he took 5 men from among his brothers and presented them to Pharaoh. And Pharaoh said to his brothers, What is your occupation? And they said to Pharaoh, Your servants are shepherds, both we and also our fathers. And they said to Pharaoh, We have come to dwell in the land because there is no pasture. There is no pasture for your servants' flocks. But the scarcity of food is severe in the land of Canaan. And now please let your servants sojourn in the land of Goshen. I had wondered, I think, in a previous episode this week, why they didn't just stay where they were and eat from their flocks and their herds. Now, maybe they didn't have large enough to supply the need of all the people for whatever number of years they would have had left, some 5 years at this point. The reality is, a shepherd is one who gives his life for the sheep. Shepherding is a very common trade or occupation for those who are Hebrew. There are others who till the ground. Perhaps there are some who do both. There are vine dressers, there are tillers of the ground, but very, very frequently what we read is that they raise flocks and herds. They're about animal husbandry. The word says in chapter 45 that we've just read from recently, in verse 11, Joseph said to his family, he said, There I will provide for you, lest you and your household and all that you have come to poverty, for there's still 5 years of famine. Joseph may not have been physically looking after sheep, but he was looking after his family. In that regard, he's a shepherd. In the book of Isaiah, chapter 40, in verse number 11, we read, He will feed his flock like a shepherd. He will gather his lambs with his arm and carry them in his bosom and gently lead those who are with young. So there we get this picture of traditionally what we see, pictures of Yeshua with the lamb in the crook of his arm, leading sheep. Of course, we know from Psalms 23 in verse 1, Yahweh is my shepherd, I shall not want. Why do we not want? Because as a shepherd, he makes sure that we have green pastures and still waters to nourish us, to calm us, and to provide for us. Yeshua says that I am the good shepherd. My sheep, they know my voice, and the voice of another they will not follow. That's from Yochanan or John chapter 10. And so there is this understanding then of shepherding and caregiving. It's about people. Much of what we have going on in Hebrew roots at present has focused on what we know. We've studied in depth the text of the scriptures, and we have done word studies, and we have found parallel references, and we have dug beneath the common surface of what is commonly preached. Many of you, perhaps like I, was in a previous congregational setting and asking the question, is this all that there is? We were hearing the same level of teaching and preaching week after week after week. And it never seemed to go beyond a certain depth. Now, there were a few that really wanted to dig in, and they, quote unquote, they got deep. And even then, it was like, we're missing something. What we were missing was that which we were told, you don't need that anymore, which was, as they called it, the Old Testament. In particular, as again, they referenced it, the law, the Torah. One thing about the Torah, it's not called the law. It's teachings and instructions. And so when we get back to the Torah, we find that there is so many levels and such depth that goes on and on and on. The focus can be at, wherever it is that you're in your personal life. You can find the meaning of the text to help you. And 10-minute Torahs. I try not to go too deep. I've only got 10 minutes, and I'm not trying to overwhelm anyone with any particular piece of information or exhibition of knowledge. It's about helping you. It's about encouraging you, admonishing you, instructing you, giving you something to chew on. My goal is that after you have watched this video, that you'll ruminate, you'll chew, you meditate on it, and it will be a focal point for you during your day. Something to help you stay focused and grow. If I can accomplish that, I've succeeded. The word ro'eh, it's what we call shepherd. It's often translated as one who ra'ah, who feeds. So a shepherd, ro'eh, is one who ra'ah, who feeds and provides for the people. There was a time that Laura and I wanted to be referred to as, quote unquote, pastor. Just call me pastor. And in previous denominational structure, that was the going thing. Just be called a pastor. Leaving that and coming into House of David and starting a Hebraic Roots congregation, I wanted to get away from that connotation. And I said, just call me Barry. I don't need a title. Now I'm understanding that the role of a pastor is still what I'm trying to accomplish. What we're trying to accomplish is leading, feeding, guarding, nurturing, structuring people. It's about people. It will always be about people. It says here in verse 4 that the reason that they left is because there was no pasture for their flocks. They ran out of a place to keep them. And it wasn't that for their own personal benefit per se. They moved to Mitzrayim for the sake of the sheep and the flocks and the herds. So they were willing to be nomadic again. They were willing to leave the familiar for the unfamiliar for the sake of those that they were providing caregiving for. If we're going to shepherd people, if we're going to teach and train and equip them, then there has to be a willingness on our own part to be inconvenienced. So when you get the phone call in the middle of the night because someone's in need, they've suddenly been rushed to the hospital, or there's some traumatic event and they need you right now. The love of Yeshua shed abroad in your heart because you care for people will get you out of a warm, comfortable bed and put you out, perhaps on a cold and rainy night, to go to someone's location to help them. Someone will call and they're frantic, they're falling apart. Some issue has arisen and they need an answer, they need prayer, they need consolation right now. You drop what you're doing because it's important. You see something awry in someone's life and you realize if this is not corrected, they're headed for shipwreck. They're going to hit a wall that's going to hurt. And with love and encouragement, you try to admonish them. Let's change this. Let's look at this. Let's see what the word says. This isn't good. These things are not easy, but it's people. And people are sheep. And they need to be led and comforted and encouraged. And I'm hoping that 2023's 10-minute Torahs have provided that for you. Shabbat Shalom to you. Thank you for subscribing, for hitting the bell, for your comments, your prayers, for those who have done so, for your support. It's all very much appreciated. But I'm asking that the King meet you again this Shabbat and grace you with his presence and encourage you. Until next week, Shabbat Shalom.